I would say the starting point could always be the Constitution, Declaration of Independence. You can always start there, like as a kind of a framework for what it should be. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. For all citizens, for everybody that lives here. But that's what it should be. So,
Yeah, I think one thing that during this time that's been, I think some of the positives that's coming out of it is like at work, I've had several people that of another race that would come up to me and just ask me about things, right? And I think that's, to me, that's where I want to get, I want to see my kids get to, is just having those uncomfortable conversations that you would probably never have um, without the protest and some of the things that's been going on. So, and then just the freedom of knowing, like you said, when my son turns 14, 15, that they're safe if they go out with their friends. I would say between the ages of 14 and about 17, I've been handcuffed, 3 or 4 times. Um, Never been arrested, but um, you know, I've been on my knees, I've been on the car. Um, so just for them to be able to grow up and not have to experience that, what does that look like? And so I definitely think just having those uncomfortable conversations um, and just being enlightened would help for sure.
You were making me think of was my husband was saying the other day about how he says, I might not ever have a platform. These babies that we had, that's where it is. Those babies that you have, those students that you lead, those babies, and even the kids that come around our kids. What kind of impact can we have? And they can just, it's like intentionally shooting our arrow to effect. And that's what we're hoping for. I don't have to have a big platform. I just need to do the best with what God has given me.
This is a tough topic, and I can't speak, for all people that are on the oppressed side of the issue. I can say that I think that it's hard for me to jump to the discussion of grace before we deal with the mourning with those who mourn. And we haven't come alongside and said, that hurt. It hurt to see you hurt, right? When we talk about what do we want freedom to look like for our kids, we got to get past the point in the body of Christ where we're not able to say to each other, like, do you see us bleeding? Do you see us? Because I feel like I've come to Trinity so many days before after a news story has broke about another person of color that's been, martyred, and it's business as usual. Hey, how you doing? Okay, excellent. Right? And we just keep going through the day. Because you don't know that I've been home crying over my sons, right? You don't know that I've been scared every time my husband walks out the door and gets, God forbid, pulled over, right? So I love that Pastor Marvin said, how can we be agents of unity? And I know that our sisters and brothers are going to be all colors and all walks of life when we get to heaven. And like a pastor said, we're going to be singing Reunited and it feels so good, and I'm excited about that. But unfortunately, my prayer is that they'll be reunited here first.
like you said, Shanae, it's tough when they don't, like when people don't at least try to understand, like just the things that happen, that you go through You know, like you said, you cried over your son, you're crying over your sons. Like I think about that with my son all the time. Like he's cute now,
Right.
but one day he's not gonna be looked at that way. One day he's gonna be 15 and he's gonna be looked at older than what he is. And he's gonna be a threat.
It takes the being vulnerable to share the thing, to invite people in, regardless of what the issue is, right, or what's going on. And I just am really thankful for the space to get to come alongside. And, you know, there's two pieces of things that just have struck me that I want to make sure you hear. The way, like, really one is the fact that when I talk about there is no them, right? Like, when I say it's just us, that part of it is like, if you're bleeding, like, well, you're part of us, so that matters, right? Like, that's not like, oh, well, that matters a lot. And I think, like, even just walking in that piece of, even as Ben was sharing, right, like, out of relationship, like, trying to seek understanding and know, like, that there are so many whose hearts are, I can speak for myself, right, whose hearts are just like, man, I want to love well, and I don't know what that looks like all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so, man, if it's hey, you know what, like Roland's saying, like, this is the need of, like, hey, I'm mourning, and can you mourn? Like, yes. You know, like, I want to know, what is us dealing with right now? Yeah. You know, like, so that I can enter in and engage. Are we rejoicing right now? Because I want to do that. And are we mourning right now? Because I want to do that. And I think, like, recognizing that there's so much fear, like, even the polarization that exists and just, like, that's created the us and them is, like, almost that that piece of, I'm afraid, you know, and there's so many different things to be afraid of, but just recognizing that God's perfect love casts out fear. And so whether we go into a situation where we're like, man, this is new to me, this isn't what I'm used to, right? Whatever that is, to just be able to invite his perfect love in and then ask him to fill us up so that we're overflowing, so that his perfect love can cast out fear in the people around us. And I want you to hear that when I say undefendable hearts, there are things that I've seen that have happened in our world that have offended me. And it's not like, oh, we're just supposed to, right? So hear that. That's not to say, like, well, we're just supposed to, you know, like, that's not it at all. And that's the righteous anger piece, right? And so I think it's the places that, at least I can see it in myself, where I'm like, okay, I chose to be offended in that one. They didn't intend to mean it that way. And, you know, and obviously there are places where there's just righteous anger that's due. And I want you to hear that, because that there's huge value in that. So